Our opening words this morning are Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. A few minutes ago, Tom Hackett shared the list of 100 words. We didn't share the whole list, but I think I'm going to hit most of them in my sermon this morning. In our reading this morning, Alok Vedmanin said, what if LGBTQIA plus activism wasn't just about what we were fighting against, but what we were fighting for? What if we were fighting for love? What if the purpose of the movement was to advance a new and more just definition of love for everyone? How can we create a movement where people can remember their beauty and their worth? We must love each other more than they could ever hate us. And that video was the impetus for this service. Today I'm going to talk about binary systems and how they harm us and how love can change that. Some of the terms that I use might not be familiar to you, so let me try and clarify them. Queer or LGBTQ is an umbrella term for people who are not straight or cisgender. I generally use queer because it's one syllable, and by reclaiming an offensive word that was used to demean me, I diffuse its power. Genderqueer is an umbrella term for genders that fall outside of the gender binary, not exclusively male or female. Genderqueer could also be called gender expansive or gender nonconforming. If a person tells you that they are queer or genderqueer, they're telling you that they identify with one of the categories that falls underneath that umbrella, and it would be improper to ask which one. The gender binary is the idea that there are only two genders, male and female. This is the stance that our government has recently taken. But I'm standing here, I exist. My gender may have been erased, but I won't be wiped away. I identify as non-binary, and there are several types, but I perceive myself as neither male nor female. I'm just me. Neither male nor female, non-binary. And because I don't identify with the gender that I was assigned at birth, female, I am also transgender, non-binary transgender. And there are many ways to be transgender. We're most familiar with transgender people such as Chaz Bono or Caitlyn Jenner, people who identify as male or female, but not the one that they were assigned at birth. They have transitioned from one gender to another, binary transgender. Gender is a journey, it's not a destination. It's fluid, it can change. It's okay to be questioning and not know the answer. It's okay to stay in that place. It means that you were thinking about stepping outside of the box. And it also means that you're right at home here, because aren't Unitarian Universalists known for being questioning? Now, 6 months ago, I was 100% certain, without a shadow of a doubt, absolutely positive that I was cisgender. And basically, I woke up one morning with the realization that I was non-binary and had been my whole life. And I said to myself, well, that's interesting. And I went on with my day. It was, and it is, not a big deal for me, but it explains a lot about my childhood. In my hometown, the year that we turned 5 was a big year. We started school and we all got bikes. I looked forward to school because I was going to learn to read and I couldn't wait. And having a bike meant freedom. As soon as we learned to ride, we had free rein to go wherever we wanted. And I'm sure there were some limitations. and I'm also sure that we ignored them. Times were different then. Our parents sent us out to play, told us to be back in time for dinner, don't take candy from strangers, and you'll be fine. And for the most part, we were. The day came to shop for a bike, and the bikes were all lined up, and I instantly chose a shiny red one. But I was told that that was a boy's bike, and I couldn't have a boy's bike. And my mother said it in a way that I knew was not negotiable. All the red bikes were boys' bikes, and all the girls' bikes were blue. And there were only two colors: red bikes for boys, blue bikes for girls. And I refused, absolutely refused to get a blue bike, even if that meant sitting in my front yard watching all of my friends ride off into the distance for the rest of my life. I refused and would not budge, and it was a hard no. We went home without a bike. It was my first disappointment and my first time drawing a line in the sand. I just knew that I could not ride a blue bike. It wasn't who I was. Now, none of us had any idea why I was refusing. We had no concept of gender outside of the binary. We had never heard the words non-binary or transgender, let alone gender nonconforming. But somehow I knew that I wasn't binary. I never thought that I was a boy, but I wasn't really a girl either. And I was not going to ride a blue bike. Eventually, I think my parents were starting to worry about what the neighbors might think. How would they explain my lack of a bike? And I don't know how they did it, but somehow they found me a bike that wasn't blue. It wasn't red, but at that point I didn't care. I had a non-blue bike. On my first day of kindergarten, I felt like I was in paradise. Rows of miniature desks and chairs with a blackboard, chalk, and pencils, just as I had imagined. And over half of the large room was devoted to a play area, and I was fascinated by this huge set of wooden blocks, solid wood, some in shapes that I had never seen, cylinders, cones, and pyramids. This was a first-class set of blocks. And as soon as I could, I made a beeline for the blocks. Unfortunately, Mrs. Davis, the kindergarten teacher, wasn't far behind me. She took me by the hand, telling me that this side of the room, with the carpeting, was where the boys played, and she led me over to the girls' side. Now, I had been taught to follow rules, so I quickly went back to the blocks and gathered up an armful, carrying them halfway across the room, just off the forbidden carpet area. Mrs. Davis arrived instantly, making herself more clear this time. Only boys were allowed to play with blocks, and she led me once again to the girls' play area, with its child-sized kitchen set, clothes washer and ironing board, and strollers, but nothing that didn't involve pretending to be a full-time mother and homemaker. In addition to teaching our young class, Mrs. Davis was also in charge of cementing our narrow gender roles, to learn our place in society. And Mrs. Davis took her job very seriously. Now, at 5 years of age, I had already figured out that women had received a raw deal. Every day was filled with laundry, cleaning, cooking and childcare, and ironing, an insane amount of ironing. And none of my friends' mothers looked particularly happy or satisfied with this arrangement. And I wasn't about to sign up for this training program for a life of oppression and servitude. Once again, I drew a hard line in the sand. I refused to play with those toys. I didn't even know how to play with those toys, and I wasn't about to learn. I went home in tears that day, and my mother called the teacher, asking if there were any art or craft supplies or puzzles that I could use, anything. And she even offered to supply them for the class. But nope. Mrs. Davis also drew a hard line. I didn't have to actually play with the toys, but I had to stay in that area, pretend to be a housewife and mother, or just stand there. So for the next 179 school days, I stood there, like an anthropologist observing life on an alien planet. I never did understand how the other girls could willingly go along with this indoctrination training. Age 5 was a tough year for me. and not easy for my poor parents either. If we had all known about gender outside of the binary system, my childhood might have made more sense to all of us. According to Alok, whether we realize it or not, we start shaping our child's future the minute they are born. With a quick glance at their genitals, they are declared male or female, thus predicting their future emotional range, domestic duties and responsibilities, romantic partners, career trajectories, and income status for the rest of their lives until they die. Studies have shown that babies are often unconsciously treated differently based on gender, how we treat them when they cry, what clothes we dress them in, what toys we allow them to play with. We teach that boys are strong, girls are weak, boys are aggressive, girls are nice, boys are rational, girls are emotional. And when they don't fit into our categories, we tell them that they're wrong. Now, I'm pretty sure that every one of us in this room was told at one point in our childhood, don't sit like that. Don't cross your legs like that. Don't walk like that, run like that, laugh like that. Don't wear those clothes, wear your hair like that. Don't love like that. We decide what color bike you'll ride and who gets to play with glitter. And don't even get me started on gender reveal parties. We can't wait. We can't even wait until a child is born before putting them in boxes. And gender is one of the first ways we learn to be right or wrong. The gender binary is a cultural belief that there are only two distinct and opposite genders, men and women. This belief is upheld by a system of power that exists to create conflict and division, not to celebrate creativity and diversity. There are as many ways to be a man as there are men. There are as many ways to be a woman as there are women. But instead of living into that diversity, we're taught to stay confined to the boxes assigned to us growing up. And we didn't even get a chance to figure that out for ourselves. It shouldn't matter who we love or which gender feels right to us. None of this hurts anyone, but boxes and labels hurt us all. Our possibilities become limited. We think that we can't be one thing if we are another, that we can't be genderqueer if we are straight. Of course we can. This thinking slows us down on our path to our authentic selves. We start to believe that this is just the way things are, even this is the way they should be. But Alok says, what if we were fighting for love? And what do binary systems have to do with love? Binary systems are always about power and control, and the gender binary is no different. A system that relies on power and control does not leave room for love. Love cannot truly exist alongside the gender binary system. Without justice, there can be no love. Love can only happen when we let go of our obsession with power and domination. We cannot claim to love if we are hurtful and abusive. Abuse and neglect are the opposite of nurturance and care. Abuse can coexist along with affection, delight, and care, but that's not love. And if love is not any of these things, then what is it? Bell Hooks, theorist and social critic, had a different opinion of love. She agreed with M. Scott Peck that love is an act of will, both an intention and an action. It's the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. We choose to love. It's an action, not a feeling. In order to love, we need to turn away from we versus them, because that separates us. Our most important pronoun should be us, all of us, together. A large part of the harm that the gender binary brings is that cisgender people are restricted to unspoken rules, a set of behaviors and policing based on their assigned gender at birth, dictating acceptable behaviors and general gender expression. And this sets us up to fail, for all of us to fail. It separates us into we versus them, and that negatively impacts us all. We repress ourselves in order to fit in these boxes, feeling that we are never man enough, never woman enough, never good enough, and that can cause anger, hatred, and misery. And that hatred is often directed towards genderqueers because we are seen as living our authentic lives. Genderqueers are targeted because we love. We love the parts of ourselves that other people hate in themselves. We know who we are. We are living our authentic lives. We are doing what they don't have the courage to do, to step outside of their boxes. The gender binary focuses us on comprehending people instead of just having compassion. We don't really need to understand their differences, because I don't understand can sometimes mean I'm okay with discrimination. Be honest with yourself. If you don't understand non-binary pronouns and you feel that you need to in order to use them, take some time and consider why comprehension feels necessary in order to be compassionate. We already do this when we respect someone's wish to be called by their full name rather than an abbreviation. We don't ask why, we just do it. This is the gender binary dividing us into us versus them. It's not necessary to understand. You just need to know that some of us need to use them, and by diligently using your own pronouns, you're being inclusive. You're being an ally. Genderqueer people can teach the world that transition is possible, not just between genders, but between paradigms. We show people that they can accept themselves, live their authentic lives, that the expansiveness, the sense of possibility that LGBTQ people give enriches everyone. As Alok says, let's make love viral. Let's make compassion and empathy viral. Let's create a more kind and generous world, not a divisive world. And let's pay special attention to our youth. Religious youth are some of the most vulnerable members of the LGBTQ community. 1 in 5 queer youth say that their spirituality or religion is important to them. But many churches, mosques, and synagogues make it difficult for queer youth to belong and thrive. 1.8 million queer youth seriously consider suicide each year. 1.8 million every year. And the rates are significantly higher in religious youth, partially stemming from religious communities teaching them that queerness is incompatible with their faith, that they need to choose one or the other. And these are some of the young people's comments. I've been told my entire life that the only way to get into heaven is by losing a piece of me. I spent hours upon hours for years praying to be straight. And I felt ungrateful because my body was supposed to be a gift from God. A while back, our congregation became aware of Beloved Arise, an organization that empowers youth to embrace both their faith and their queer identity. They fight for the lives of queer youth from all faith traditions, particularly those who live in the margins of their faith communities. Our congregation has applied to become part of a network of faith communities that offer a place for youth to belong and feel safe. There are none in Kingston and Poughkeepsie, and since we are a welcoming and affirming congregation with queer programming and a queer presence, we feel that we can offer a place of refuge. We hope to reach out to youth ages 14 to 24 who have been rejected by their faith and often by their families, told to choose between their religion and their queerness, and who are looking for a faith home. And we hope they will echo some of the words of the youth who came before them. And it suddenly hit me, it was okay. I can be gay and religious. And I have fallen in love with my queerness, and I have grown so much in my faith. I have never felt so joyful and confident. These queer youth of faith are our neighbors. They need us. They need us to offer them a faith home, to accept them just as they are, to show them that all are truly welcome here. And I believe we can do that. Although we're still in the application process and hope to be able to announce our acceptance in the coming months. Because one accepting adult in a queer person's life reduces their suicide risk by 40%. And if I could do that for just one person, I would feel like my life had had meaning. There is nothing more powerful than stepping into your own truth. We get to choose who we are. No one gets to choose for us. There is no standard definition for what it means to be a man, woman, non-binary, or trans. There is only our definition. The purpose of life is not to fit into a box, but to be our authentic selves. We can choose authenticity over adversity.